So real quick, this is a re-upload. I kept the first half original and then edited the second half to better convey a message. This is about trials. A lot of the changes Bungie proposed look very positive, but there was one that lit up the community. I commented on it, got some very toxic replies, and I should have waited to make a better response, and instead, here we are. So thanks for considering it. Lesson learned. Talk to you in the next one. This week, Bungie dropped a thick article on the rework of Trials of Osiris and their plans moving forward. You can read about that in the description below, but I'll give you the highlights right now. Bungie says their goal is participation and progression, with notable changes being that you have to pay to play, which cuts down on cheating. There are security improvements like BattleEye and a real crackdown on account recoveries, which is something that I never thought would happen. This is standard practice in other MMOs, and exciting to see Bungie take this route because it speaks measures about the future of the game. They also added freelance, which is solo queue, and makes it a single person decision. And they reduced the round time to 1 minute 30 seconds instead of 2 minutes, so yay, less camping. They also removed third person hilting and emotes, which obviously means that people have less free info, which leads to less stalling and less pre-firing. Ammo now resets between rounds, which tempers the strength of the sniper rifle and grenade launcher, and allows for counterplay by counting the shots. Trials rewards were also reworked. Round wins now award reputation, which gives Trials gear and materials. Options were also added to continue playing despite 3 losses on a card, and wins on a 7-win card drop extra rewards. You can earn Pinnacle gear for 7 matches won or 50 rounds won on a given weekend. Reward focusing also exists via a Trials engram for a steep cost, and this is to be determined later exactly what they mean by that. It apparently works with adept weapons. Crucible Labs returns with a more objective focused capture point type game mode that I'm heavily looking forward to trying. And finally, they added skill-based I cut myself off there for safety. Some people lack the ability to think past a single sentence, so let's just read the entire Bungie paragraph verbatim. They said, "Matchmaking. We believe that card-based matchmaking is very valuable and can add some significant drama at the right time, but it is best when all players participating have the same end goal or similar performance characteristics. Too often, flawless or bust players get mixed in with players that have different goals and skill set, and that misalignment can cause problems. You now start matchmaking with players that have the same number of wins on the card and with similar Trials game performance of the given week. We have a bunch of different factors planned, and we'll be watching and tuning these to balance match quality versus matchmaking time. If matchmaking takes too long, it widens the similarity check until it finds enough opponents for the match to start." Okay, calm down. Whatever snarky, predisposed comment you're thinking of, shut the fuck up for 15 seconds. Now let's look at this big picture and consider all sides. Firstly, let's acknowledge that there are different levels of how strict skill-based matchmaking can be. It can be as harmless as simply preventing a team that already went flawless from matching a team that hasn't yet won 3 games. On the flip side, it can be so strict that it forces a 50% win rate, and then nobody goes flawless even on a mercy card, except for the 1% of the 1% teams that can't be skill bracketed downward appropriately. We don't know how strict the skill-based matchmaking is, but Bungie didn't elaborate. We can only speculate and at most express our concerns for if the system is too strict. Let's get this one out of the way now.
Lamau, sweaty teams mad because they have to play other sweaty teams. Now you know what it feels like to be an average skill player in Trials.
Editor's note, I didn't like the first or second way I presented this idea, so I want to take a third stab at it, because a lot of people miss the message I'm trying to convey, and it purely comes down to a numbers perspective. So first, let's talk about how Trials is a paradox. It is both a loot source and a competitive game mode. In the current system of Trials, a low skill player's chance of going flawless is non-existent. High skill players go flawless often, but RNG keeps them from the best rolls on weapons. So in this hypothetical conversation of skill-based matchmaking being strict, there's going to be a terrible situation where every kind of player, no matter how good you are in your appropriate bracket, will have a 1 out of 128 chance of going flawless because the game is trying to force a 50% win rate. Game 1, 50% chance you win. Game 2, 50% chance you win. It might even be better than that. We can play benefit of the doubt here, say there's some 70s and 60s in there, and chances are you're still not going flawless. At least, unless you get lucky, 1 out of 128 times. The problem is, at some point, the high skill player decided to improve at the game. They chose to effortfully study VODs, maps, callouts, scrim to improve their loot efficiency in trials. And in a strict skill-based matchmaking system, no matter how much harder they work, no matter how much better they get, their chance is still 1 out of 128. Now, don't quote me on this number. It's just an estimate, but still, it's a high-ass number. Trust on this. So in my original video, my Twitter post and whatnot, people asked me for a solution, and I'm no developer, but I'm just a player. Here's what I came up with. My proposed solution was to have a light version of skill-based matchmaking on the card with loot for everyone, essentially participation, and you get an adept. Then, you give players a choice to keep playing after reaching 7 wins, but skill-based matchmaking is gone. It's the whole population again. And here, by winning on a past 7 wins card, every win will give you a currency, an adept currency, to craft a specific role on a weapon for a steep price. In this case, everyone wins because it accomplishes adept loot for participation, it keeps high skill players out of the first 7 games, and then provides a realistic path to specific loot acquisition, and since it is the whole population at the end of that card, even the low skill players do have a chance of getting some wins there because it's everybody. So I messed up royally with the explanation in the last video by using the word effort instead of complexity when talking about low skill versus low skill and high skill versus high skill teams. Both teams are putting a valiant effort. They are both trying their absolute hardest, and nobody can take that away from you. High skill games are inherently more complex. A lot goes in behind the scenes for those players to even show up. They had to study the maps, they had to improve their aim, they watch VODs, they scrim. A lot of hard work goes into it. So we gotta remember the topic at hand, which is a hypothetical world of strict skill-based matchmaking that is trying to force a 50% win rate. In this world, a player like that can boot up anime on the side monitor, take Telesto and Arc Souls and hold forward, and eventually skill-based matchmaking will find an appropriate match and they can luck their way into that 1 out of 128 chance with minimal effort. But I'm kind of done with all this pointless bickering and hypothetical SBMM talks because Bungie hasn't even said it themselves what the system is going to be. And all this has really shown me is that the PvP community, and PvE community especially, is in dire need of a real ranked playlist in PvP where there is an incentive to improve without a loot source, so that it doesn't muddy the waters and have this paradoxical game mode. And at that point, Bungie can make trials whatever they want, and the hardcore PvP community won't even really care besides just saying, man, it really sucks that I can't get the weapon I want, but that's more of a Destiny problem at large and not a specific trials problem. Thanks for listening to the video and hearing out my perspective. Sometimes I jump the gun on these because I get some really toxic replies, and I'm like, yeah, I probably need to address this. And yeah, sometimes it spirals a little out of control, and I should have just said, fuck it, let them talk shit, and then come up with a better video at the end of it all. So, I appreciate y'all. Thanks again.